Are you ready to hear about how I invested 3 planning periods or 3 days in order to get 3 weeks done of planning in my high school world language classroom? Yeah, it's for real. I hope you're ready for this World Language Wednesday, or WoLang Wednesday as I like to call them, because I'm so excited to share with you all of the ways that I have used CI readers, I know, surprise, surprise, to save my butt so many times in my world language classroom, but especially today. Here's how WoLang Wednesday is gonna go down. Hi y'all, thanks so much for coming to hang out with me. So here's what we're gonna talk about. Today, we're gonna talk about my favorite CI readers for all languages, every single language, from French, what I taught, Spanish, also what I taught, for levels 1 and 2. And we're also going to talk about where you can find and some titles that I found for you for great CI readers for Chinese, German, and Italian. I found all the things for you. So let's get right into it. The first thing that we're going to talk about here is why CI readers in particular, like ones like this, are really your best planning investment. And it doesn't really matter what format, how long you have your students, what grade you teach, any of that stuff. Like, this works for everybody. And you can, of course, adapt all of these activities to make them work for you. But we're going to talk about why this is your best planning investment that you can make, and how I've used this strategy twice when I was really in a pickle and needed to come up with some plans like zap, like split, like now for a long range. So you can keep this in your back pocket too. And of course, everybody pretty much in the world language community talks about how powerful reading is to get your students to the next level of acquisition that much easier. But the true power of CI readers is how easy they are to teach. They make teaching so easy. And teaching's not easy right now. So you need everything that you can get in your toolkit. So the next thing that we're going to talk about is what you can do with physical books. So if you've got physical books in your classroom, and even if you have just one copy because you're real budget tight, we're going to talk about how you can make that work. And we're also going to talk about how I used, hi Erin! Erin and I used to teach together. We're going to talk about how during quarantine, I used e-readers to save my life during quarantine, and how I made that work for me for like a full 3 weeks. So that's the lesson plan that we're specifically going to talk about. And I know that a lot of y'all have been emailing me about like asynchronous plans for books. How does that work? And recently from Practical and Comprehensible, if you joined us for that conference, we talked with the master, the queen, AC Quintero, about how she is using books right now in her, it was previously 100% virtual, but now she's in person with her students again, and what she's doing with her books that she writes as well as others that she uses. And so I'm going to give you some ideas that you can also steal from her. And then the last thing that we're going to talk about are my list of favorites, like where you can really go to find amazing books and how to do it on the cheap. Because I have never, not once, paid a dime of my own personal money for these books. And I'm going to tell you why. Because there are some things that I did pay for when I was still in the classroom with my own money, but for readers especially, those are things that you can more easily than other supplies that you can definitely wrangle up grants for, and easy things. So I'm going to show you exactly how I did that. And if you're interested in that too, throw me a DM my way or put it in the comments below, and I will send you a blog post to the link of how exactly I used Donors Choose in order to get the library for my classroom. And also, when I wasn't able to use Donors Choose the second time, how I finagled getting books with my administrator, and like what wording I used, how I advocated for them, and how I got my entire classroom library paid for, even with a very limited budget. It was really exciting. Hi, school bus in the background. We love y'all in there. So let's jump right into it. Why are readers your best planning tool? Readers are one of your best planning tools because these bad boys have all of the content in there for you. you don't have to do any work in order to make this happen. Like a lot of the times that we spend planning as world language teachers is coming up with content, coming up with stories. Where am I going to find a game? Where am I going to find an activity? And like, I loved doing that. That was one of my favorite parts about being in the classroom. But also, it's not the most important part. Like there are lots and lots of times in your career and during your day where you don't have a lot of time. You're very crunched during the day for planning. And the best part about CI readers is that not only is everything done for you in terms of what you can use in your classroom, like all the content is already there, but the best part about it is that everything is completely comprehensible to your students. Like the authors who create these books have worked tirelessly to make these things. I mean, look at this glossary. It's wild. It is wild. It is wild. And the best part about this too is that you don't have to do a lot of work for your students to understand what's going on in these texts, because if you, I mean, I know we have French teachers, Spanish teachers, German teachers, all the friends are here, but for these texts, they're incredibly comprehensible. The authors work really hard to make sure that these books have very few new words. And especially if you're going to places like brycehedstrom.com, hi, or if you are on Fluency Matters or AC Quintero's website, it will tell you the number of words that are in each book. And they're very well leveled as well. And when Bryce Hedstrom taught me all the things about reading and pushed me to do readers in my classroom, he also taught me the amazing thing about this. Make sure you're listening. Make sure you get real close for this one. Reading works 9 times faster than almost any other acquisition strategy, according to Dr. Stephen Krashen. Pretty cool, right? 9 times faster. They will retain words better, but also it's faster. It's one of those things where you get a lot more bang for your buck when you're working with readers. But the most important thing that I think for teachers, because you guys probably already know all that. I mean, y'all been around the block. You know what is going on with everything when it comes to how to, like, why readers are important. But I think what the secret is, like what's still not really being talked about a lot, and what I'm here to tell you is that they save you so much time. So let's go into, I'm going to give you just an example of how I used 3 planning days last year to get back 3 whole weeks in my classroom. It was so cool. So the first day I spent, and so, okay, the planning period that I had was I worked in block scheduling with High School French 1. High School French 1, I'm looking for exactly what I can make work with my French 1 students, and I know I wanted to use readers because the year before that I taught French 1 and Spanish 2 and Spanish 1, and they did amazingly with readers. But I was doing something called free voluntary reading, and I wanted to do something with a little bit more structure this time because I wasn't very great at free voluntary reading, frankly, because I just didn't really give it enough time, as you know. Not everything works for everybody, but I didn't really give that enough time. But point of the story being that I was sitting thinking about, okay, I need to get me some books. So the first planning period, this is what I did. I went online and I went and looked for the best CI readers, especially for French teachers. And Sabrina knows, she's here too, that it's really difficult to find good books for French learners. It's really hard. So I spent a little bit of time doing that. But if you're a Spanish teacher, easy. When I was teaching Spanish, that took me no time at all. There's so many good books. There's so many good books. And so the next thing that we're going to talk about too is exactly how you can get your hands on this list, because I had to download for you. Because I already did the work for you, y'all. You don't have to... Yeah, right? Yeah, tell me about it. It's hard. It's hard to find good French readers. But I'm going to take out the work for you here. If you are a Spanish or a French teacher, go to... I had to write it down, make sure that I said it all correctly and didn't give you the wrong link. But it's lalibrelanguagelearning.com/reader, and you can get this list. You can download this list right here. These are my 8 favorite readers. These are the ones that I spent this planning period researching, finding the ones that I wanted for my classroom. And so my favorite ones that I was looking for, I found these three, and I used these three for my French 1 and then my French 2 planning, because I had to find something that worked for both of them, right? Because those of you who teach multiple preps, especially French teachers, it's got to scale, right? It's got to scale or we're not spending time on it. It's got to work for multiple preps or we're not spending time on it. These books right here, they work for multiple preps. I like these a lot. They work for multiple preps. Like this worked really well for my 1s and 2s. I would not use this with 1s. It's too many words. This is a level 2, maybe level 3 book, but we'll talk more about that in a minute. But that's what I spent the first planning period doing, is finding all the books that I wanted and getting all of the prices together. That is important. Getting all of the prices together and knowing exactly how much they were. Day 2 of planning. Well, actually, I did this during day 1 because it didn't take me that long, but it might take you a little bit of time depending on exactly how you're doing. Day 1. Hi, Gloria. Thanks for hanging out with us. Learning French. Yeah. Apréndelo. So we had not a ton of money to go around, especially for a forgotten department like world language. So I had to be very creative about how I presented my argument for my book idea. And so I spent a little bit of time wording my email, making sure that everything looked good so that I could send it to my administrator and say, hey, give me some books. I love books. I need books. Give me some books. And that is what I spent the rest of that planning period doing, is I gathered all of the prices and I asked for, this is what I need for my classroom. That was very strongly worded. Dear highly esteemed principal, administrator, whoever, I need this. Thank you so much for your consideration. There was no like, maybe if you could, I need this. Thank you very much. And this is how much there is in total. I'm also, if it's okay, we can also do maybe half of those books, whatever works for the budget, but this is what I need for my class this year. How can we make this work with the budget that currently exists in the school? So the wording is really important in there, to be very much direct, polite, firm, but also flexible. You know, I mean, you're working with budgets. That's a difficult thing. Administrators don't have a lot of control over that. But also, you need to make it very clear that this is something that you need for your classroom if you're serious about getting departmental funds for it. So the wording I used was, after I said, dear so-and-so, this is just a tiny bit of research. I gave them one sentence, not a lot. I need these for my classroom, and I would really appreciate your help making this happen. This is how much they cost. I'm flexible. If we maybe need to get half the order, that is okay. But what can we do to make this happen with the budget that we have? Thank you so much for your consideration and your time, blah, blah, blah. Love you, mean it, XOXO, all the things. And that's how I got my books. My administrator was very receptive because she was amazing. She forwarded it to my principal and we made it happen. And I have gotten pushback for getting things from my classroom before, but you know, you work through it. It's cool. It's all good. You guys are good at that. Y'all are really good at fighting for your students. So think of it as an extension of fighting for your students. You're very good at fighting for your students and fighting for the things that work for your classroom. Like, don't be shy about asking for stuff that you need. The worst thing that happens is you hear the word no, and that's okay. If you do hear the word no, you know, it's just not in the books this year, then it's completely doable and completely okay to get one copy. You can absolutely do the activities that I'm talking about with one copy. You absolutely can. There are ways to do that. Especially if you're virtual, you honestly only need one copy of all these books. So that's how I made it happen. When you get the physical books or the e-learning books, if you would like e-learning books, go to fluencymatters.com. Those e-learning books are just incomparable. They're so good. They're so good. They're about $5 a piece, or you can get group pricing for $3 to $4 each, depending on the novel. So if you're thinking about, I have 10 students, that's how much it's going to be. If you have 30 students, that's how much it's going to be. And there's a bunch of different resources that go with it. I'm not at all affiliated with Fluency Matters books. They saved my life when I was teaching last year during quarantine and had no idea what to do with my students. So this is and I'll talk to you about that plan later. All right, so that was day 1. Day 2 of this plan was as soon as I was figuring out, okay, now what am I going to do with these books? So we had to wait for all the shipping and everything to go through, all the paperwork, purchase orders, all the things. But day 2 of planning was, what am I going to do with these books once they get here? And that plan consisted of getting me some, and you can do this a couple different ways in your school. If you are in person, this was a plan that I did in person pre-COVID, so you might have to adjust it, but this is what I did, and I'm going to give you a post-COVID plan after this, but during this planning period, day 2, and this is where I got most of the bang for my buck, is I got all of the papers I would need together for something called a graffiti wall activity. And that lasted me, honestly, about 4 days in a block class. That's a lot. And what the students had to do was, it was with this book actually, specifically, La France en danger. And the students, I was reading with them. We were reading the book together. You see they're very, very simple, short and sweet little chapitres. And what we would do is, they're about 1, 2, or 3 pages. And so for each 2 to 3 pages, what the students had to do is we would read together. We would talk about it in English. And then, because I had about a 50% target language classroom, I was still working on definitely getting it up and up, but we would talk about it a little bit in English, make sure everybody understood, and then have a little bit of a conversation about it in French at level 1. And then their next assignment was with a partner, avec un partenaire. They would take some sort of feutre and they would go around the room for the graffiti walls and they would write down all of the words they knew for a certain, and I put up a couple different things. They were growing lists. One of them, and this stayed on the wall for the whole week. One of them was the main character, the second main character, the third main character, the antagonist, the setting, the new place that they were in, the problem. And what they would do is they would write words from the book, or I would sometimes allow them to write things in English, but every day we got into this routine of constantly reading and constantly writing about what we were reading and then talking about it. And they would, as part of their routine, walk around the room each day after they were done reading and we were done discussing it. That was about 20 to 30 minutes of each class because it takes a long time to read, simple chapter 3 pages with a level 1 or level 2 class. And that's what they would do. That took about 20 to 30 minutes for each one. And sometimes I would switch up a little bit the activities or the things that they would talk about. And then I would show them some sort of video or YouTube thing, especially depending on what the subject was. Like this one is about Picasso and cafes in Paris and traveling around Spain and things like that. So I would find them some pictures and we would do just quick picture talks. So that required zero planning because I would just put up a picture. If you're unfamiliar with picture talk, I would put up a picture of a cafe and ask them to describe as much as they could of what they saw in the picture. That required zero planning. So that was day 2, was getting all of those together, separating those out, putting up all of the pieces of paper and planning that out and getting everything together. That was day 2. Day 3 of planning was, okay, how am I going to make sure that everybody's held accountable for this? And assessment time. That was when I really dug into all the logistics of it. So for the logistics of this, in a high school classroom, this might be different. Gloria, if you need the title of these books, go to lalibrelanguagelearning.com or lalibrelanguagelearning.com/readers. And you will get an entire list of all of these books that I'm talking about here. So these are the CI readers for French. And these are the CI readers for Spanish. Because I remember this book exists in the Spanish version too. It's originally in the Spanish version. And I taught it with my Spanish kids too. La France en danger. But I do not remember what it's called in Spanish. I think it's Agentes Secretos. Algo así. No me recuerdo. But we're going to talk about a bunch of books today, so I don't want to overwhelm you with all the lists. So go to that URL, lalibrelanguagelearning.com/reader, and you'll be able to find all of the titles there. And So what we did to try and what I did to figure out how I was going to hold my students accountable for the work that they were doing and make sure that they also got credit for everything that they were doing in class is I would give them participation points and grades for the conversations that they were having with their partners. So I would walk around during the conversations they were having with partners, and that is probably going to look different for you right now, but just an idea of what they would do with each chapter after they read it is I would make sure that each student was having a productive discussion on, what did this word mean? Did you get this part? Do you know anything about this hero, villain, blah, 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 whatever. The little cat that's in that book. And check and make sure that everybody got at least 3 checks for the week so that you're not trying to get everybody every day because, it's not everybody's day all the time. But 3 for a week, that's a reasonable expectation. And the other part was we would do free writes at the end of the class period that would be very open-ended, and they could either just take out a sheet of paper and write as many sentences as they could about the book that they read that day, things that they understood, things that they were able to write, and what they wanted to learn, things that they liked about the characters, what they didn't like about the characters. Do they like the book? Do they not like the book? And they would just free write for the end of 10 minutes of every period while we were reading the book. And then the next part that they would do that I would give them credit for and do assessments on is we would do quizzes. And the quizzes I did start out with very open-ended quizzes, but I will tell y'all that even though that is very proficiency-centered, it's freaking hard to grade. And I'm very much about practicality. It was really hard to grade and it took a really long time. So I mixed in a little bit of 2 things. I did both some quick multiple choice checks that were very, very, very approachable in terms of, do you know who this character is? Do you know what happened at this? Like, do you remember that there was a car accident? Do you know that they're secret agents? Things that they would pick up if they were in class, if they were part of what's going on, and that were not, gotcha questions. Those ain't a thing. Don't do that. But I did mix in a little bit of those to make sure that we were all on the relatively same page. And because the reading pace of your students is going to vary, oh my goodness, it's going to vary a lot. So that's also why I liked having activities like the graffiti wall activity where students were walking around and talking with each other, because having activities like that allows you to hone in on the students who need you to read every single word with them, because you're going to have those. Don't be upset about it. Plan for it. It's okay. I had 2 or 3 in every class that needed me to sit down with them and go through every word. And trust me, most of the time, what it really is that student just needs reassurance that they're on the right track. That's all they need. They just need reassurance that they're on the right track, because they know a lot more than they think they do. They just don't trust themselves. That's what you can do with physical books. And those are just a few ideas. I am very far from an expert teacher at reading. That this was probably the 2nd time that I've tried reading in my classroom. But the reason that I'm getting on here and telling you about this is because this is your best friend when it comes to providing highly engaging lesson plans that are acquisition driven, that will drive your students forward. My students picked up so many new words and meanings and crazy amounts of acquisition. And I was barely doing anything. So if you are encountering a season right now where you're having to do a lot of work, I've been spending the past week hopping on Zoom calls with teachers to get some insights into what your classroom looks like right now, because I'm not in the classroom right now and I want to make sure that I am still providing to you value for what's going on in your room. And oh my goodness, a lot of teachers have told me that their planning has increased a lot, like 40%, 50%, or doubled. Can you relate to that? Because that's what 3 teachers told me this week, is that they're planning way more than they ever have before in their life. So I wanted to make sure that you knew that CI readers, yeah, they're amazing for how great they are in your class and how much they help really drive your students forward in terms of what they can do. But the best part is that they cut so much of your planning time out with the same level of amazing results as a lot of other things that you're doing in your classroom that are taking you 3 times as long to plan. It's awesome. It's awesome. So again, if you need a list of books to get you started, also you can just Google the term CI readers or comprehensible input readers. You'll find a lot on Amazon. But I will say that I have a few friends who write these books, and they get more credit. If you are able to do that, they get more credit straight off their website. So go to acquinterobooks.com and get from her. And I'm so excited to tell you about this one, but I'm going to tell you one right now so I don't forget. But my friend Jade Green that I used to teach with, La Secundaria, her book, Sueño Hecho Realidad, is out, and it's fresh and it's new, and you can get it on Fluency Matters. I'm so excited for that book to be released. It is awesome. So for Spanish teachers, check that one out. Also, French teachers, Alice Ayel, make sure that you're following her. I don't remember her Instagram handle. Dang it. I should have probably written that down. But that's okay. We live and we learn. Send me a DM if you're not sure, but also just type in the name Alice Ayel. She specializes in writing short stories for French learners. And she's got amazing stuff on there. So the next thing that we need to talk about here is, since I'm looking at my notes to make sure that I'm not getting off track here, but we have talked about lots of different activities that you can do. How I used books, physical books though, in order to, I used 3 planning periods. You hear that? 3 planning periods. And I got 3 weeks out of just this one book. Just this one book. Now this one is a little bit of a tragic loss for me, because I ordered this book for my French 2s, but you know, this is the life. We were gonna do it in March 2020. Hilarious, right? So I never got to use this book with my French 2s, but I did read it, and it's good, and it's a really good book for you to use with your students. It's not ideal. It's not ideal. I will say that this book specifically from tprsbooks.com, that's another great source for books, that this one in particular has some pretty heavy language in it. And it also is written by Blaine Ray, who doesn't belong to the culture that he's talking about. But when it comes to French resources, it's really hard to find books, especially with representation. So this book in particular is about a girl from Mauritania who is going to California as an exchange student and her experiences there. So this is a fine read. It's not the best, but it was the best thing that I could find. So I recommend that to you, but with a little bit of reservation. I will tell you though, this is my favorite. This is my absolute favorite for French teachers, is this one. Qui parle français. This is my absolute favorite, by Carla Tarini. Forgive me, Carla, if I did not say your name correctly. Your name is beautiful, and I do not want to butcher it. Carla Tarini. But this is 10 people from the Francophone world. And the best part about this is that it is in first-person French, but also that you can use these for multiple days, multiple weeks. I use these for warm-ups for, oh my gosh, so long. And we also did special person projects on these guys, and students were allowed to pick and choose who they wanted to read about. Days and days and days of content. So good. Days of content. Now for Spanish class, oh my gosh, you have so many choices. It's not even funny. You have so many choices. I just mentioned to you Sueño Hecho Realidad. That's a really, really exciting new read. I can't wait to get my hands on that one. But I also have some cool ones that I want to make sure that you know about. Pancho y las momias, I'm reading off of my list here, by Rachel Emery, is a really great book about Dia de Muertos and mummies. It's really fun. That's a really great book to look at. El Último Viaje by AC Quintero, and also her book La Clase de Confesiones, and she has the French equivalent, La Clase de Confession. That book is a really simple but juicy novel about somebody who has a crush in their French class, and they don't want to tell. It's really good. Students love it. And another really good one that I want to make sure that you know about is this book called Yanga. That is a new release last year by Chris Mercer, and it's the story of an African prince. Really cool book in Spanish. I also am a little bit obsessed with Aztecs right now. I'm reading a lot about Aztecs, and I was really excited to find this on Fluency Matters, was this book called, I'm also not going to say this one right, so I apologize, Aztec deities, but Tezcatlipoca. This is an e-reader, actually, that you can get from Fluency Matters. That one looks really cool. I wish that I could use that in a classroom right now because it looks really, really cool. But those are just a couple that I found for you. And for Chinese readers, if you go to Fluency Matters, there are 12 books on there that you can use. And one of them is called I Am Bebe, and it's got this cute little picture of a cat on the front. And I want to read that book. I want to read it so bad. And for German teachers, you have to know about this one. The whole Brandon Brown series. The whole Brandon Brown series. This is a thing. This is the thing you need to know about. This is on Fluency Matters. I'm forgetting who it's by. Is it Carol Gabb? Maybe. I don't know. But it's on Fluency Matters. And this is a perfect segue because now we get to talk about very quickly about how I used also e-readers to save my booty during quarantine. When I was first starting to teach from home and had no idea what to do and was also surrounded by chaos in my own home. You know, I had a very loud dog. I had a 4-year-old who was at home with me, and my husband was also home with me, and I did not, you all know, you were all there, I did not have any kind of mental space or energy or anything to do lesson plans. It was not a thing, nor make them very good. So what I did, because I'd had that experience before of, wow, CI readers are great. They're very engaging. Students like them. And not only that, they will take care of me for a long time. So if you are in a situation right now, and I mean just all the time, but especially right now, where you're having a really hard time planning and it's very taxing for you, go and hit up fluencymatters.com. I used everything on Fluency Matters for a full, oh my gosh, I want to say 8 weeks. But the best part about it was that when I used those e-readers, and they offered almost all of their materials, like a select group of their most popular materials for free during the first 3 months of online teaching, which was just so generous and amazing, which is why I'm such a big fan of them, is I use those because I could no longer use the paper books that I had purchased. But the e-readers, the amazing thing about this is that all I had to do, this is the best part about Fluency Matters, all I had to do to get my students on board, there was no tech fatigue. I just had to put in their email and they had an account. There was no password drama. There was no all these giant sign-ins and login things. It was so easy. Like every other program was so clunky. I had this online program that I was using with my textbook. It was the freaking worst. And everything was just a lot harder with getting everything on Google Slides in such a short amount of time. And Fluency Matters, it's just put in their name, put in their email, they're good to go. Like they've got it down. It's awesome. And so this really, really saved me because I was able to get 3 weeks of planning done in just a few days. And it also includes prepared assessments for you and comprehension questions before, during, and after reading. It's truly brilliant. So that is absolutely something I highly recommend if you are in the position where you know that you can get a few e-readers, and especially if you have small class sizes, that's what I would do. That's what I would do to make sure that you save yourself a lot of time. If you're also in the position right now of if you're looking for new resources and things to use with your classroom, this is where to go to get the most bang for your buck. I mean, you can always get a unit and make that work for the unit, but the best part about readers is that they last a really long time. There's a lot of different things that you can do with it. There's a lot of different things. And the last thing that I want to mention to you is that all of these, you can branch off into lots and lots of different directions for what you can do with the books as well. So for example, I have on here for the German readers, there was this really cool book called Namika, I think, by Julie Young. And it is about a German rapper of Moroccan descent. And she's navigating dual identities, living in Germany and figuring out how, am I Moroccan? Am I German? How do I feel about myself? And how do I feel about other people perceiving me? And that story, you could do so much with that. You could do a virtual field trip after the students have finished reading it. You could put yourself In a similar situation, of course, we're not trying to do any of the things where it's like pretend like you're Malika. That's not a good idea. I mean, Namika. But you could definitely do, have you ever felt torn between two communities or two worlds? What has that been like for you? There's so many opportunities for empathy in a story like that. And in Italian as well, for Brandon Brown, there's a bunch of different books for that. It's Brandon Brown Wants a Dog. Brandon Brown is the new Houdini. And I have no idea how they said it in Italian, but for my Italian teachers out there, what you can do with these books is all of these books are very, very simple language, but talk about very universal themes. That's why a lot of teachers use them. And the universal themes are something that you could truly expand on a lot in your classes, no matter what format you're in, whether you're in person. I use all of those books virtually, asynchronously with my students. And I assigned them a few extension prompts to go with the themes of the book. Like there's also a book called Brandon Brown Tells the Truth. And that one is all about an encounter that he has with his mom where he doesn't tell the truth and what happens. And I mean, think about all of the opportunities that you have for students to personalize their experience with the book. When have you not told the truth and what happened? Or when did you tell the truth but people didn't believe you? Like there's so many opportunities for you to expand on that. AC Quintero talked about this really cool activity that I'm a little obsessed with, and I will leave you on this thought because you could do it either in person or virtually, no matter what age group your students are, with something called a cover talk. So it's kind of like a picture talk, but she talked about this and we had a conversation during Practical and Comprehensible about this, and it was my favorite activity from all the things. Even though it was really simple, she gave a lot of really great suggestions, but this one was my favorite, is she did something called a cover talk, where she would hold the cover in front of her students, hi, and would ask them, who's on the cover? Are they a girl or a boy? What do they look like? Who are they talking to? What do you think they like? Are they smart? Are they a poet? Are they a musician? How old are they? Like, just the options and opportunities for discussions are wild. And especially if you have something like this that's a little bit more abstract. Oh, you have so many good opportunities. You have so many good opportunities. So I will leave you with that thought. If you are ready to get some of these books and get rolling, you can certainly spend some time looking for them and looking for what you think would work for you. But as a level 1 and a level 2 previous teacher, these are the things that I found that I like. And some of these books also are more suited for level 3 or level 4, but I put them on there because they're freaking awesome books. And to get this list, this is again, the list for CI readers for Spanish that I absolutely love. There's 8 on here. And this is the list of CI readers for French class. I have used almost all of these books, and other ones have been recommended to me by other teachers who have used them and really like them. So these are verifiably awesome. If you need this list, then you can DM me if you're having a hard time with the URL. It's cool. Send me a DM or a personal message. Whatevs. Can't wait to talk to you. Or you can go to lalibrelanguagelearning.com, just like you see up there in the username, /reader. lalibrelanguagelearning.com /reader. And you got the whole list right there. For my German, Italian, and Chinese teachers, go to fluencymatters.com first. You will find a huge list of readers there, because when looking for things for this class, that was the place I found the most in there. And so for Italian, the Brandon Brown, there's particularly a lot of those, like that whole series. And that Namika book looks really good for German teachers. I also saw another one on there that was all about mysterious nights in a city in Germany. I don't remember how to pronounce it or what it was called, but that one was a really cool one. And there are so many Chinese readers on there too. I still want to read that cat one. Like, low-key want to read that cat one so bad. So let me know which ones you're excited to use with your classroom, and also let me know how much planning time it saves you. Because at the end of the day, yes, it's an amazing strategy, but the best part about it is that it's really going to save you a ton of time. It's going to save you a ton of time. That's how I invested 3 days of planning and got a whole 3 weeks back of classroom plans. And that's really the beauty of proficiency, is that you can do so much with just a little bit of content, because the art is really in how you make it interesting to your students and how you get them wrapped into the conversation and how you can really make it about them. So making these books about them and making it interesting to them with lots of student choice is really the secret to all of this. If you are having a hard time getting resources for your classroom, then there are plenty of places where you can get free starters for now. And you can start with just short stories, magazine articles, quick things, or you could be like me and you could write stories yourself about your students and watch the hilarity ensue. Thank you so much, y'all, for all being here and joining me for this WoLang Wednesday class. I'm here every Wednesday, so I can't wait to see you for the next one. And until then, bye. Ciao. Adios. Have an awesome rest of your day.